So, when you think about the Roman Empire, what's the first image that pops into your head? I bet for a lot of us it's that lone warrior, standing in the middle of a massive arena, ready to fight. Well, today we're going to dive into the real story of the Roman gladiator.
But here's the big question, the one that kind of flips the script on everything we think we know from the movies. Was every single one of these epic showdowns a fight to the death? The answer? Well, it might just surprise you.
To really understand the gladiator, you first have to understand their stage. We're talking about these enormous arenas, the absolute epicenters of Roman entertainment, where tens of thousands of people would gather to watch.
And the biggest, the baddest of them all was, of course, the Colosseum in Rome. Just try to picture this, 50,000 people. That's the size of a huge modern sports stadium, and every single seat was filled for these games. The scale was just mind-blowing.
So who were these fighters? These absolute icons of the Roman world? You might think they were all just condemned men with no way out, but the truth is a whole lot more complicated than that.
You see, the guys who fought in the arena came from literally all walks of life. I mean, yeah, sure, many were slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals who were forced into it. But, and this is a huge but, some were actually free men who volunteered. They were chasing fame, glory, and some serious prize money.
A gladiator wasn't just some random person thrown into the ring. Oh no. They were crafted, they were molded, they were trained in these highly specialized schools designed to create the ultimate fighting machines. These schools were called a ludus. Think of it like part military boot camp, part elite training academy. This was the place where a man's old identity was basically stripped away and he was reborn as a gladiator, a living weapon.
And the training? It was absolutely grueling. It was this whole systematic process. First, they had to master the basics of combat. Then, they'd specialize in specific weapons and armor styles. And the whole time, they were pushed to the absolute limit of physical endurance. These guys were, for all intents and purposes, the professional athletes of the ancient world.
Okay, so let's get back to our big question. Now that we know just how much was invested in these fighters, it's time to tackle that big, bloody myth head-on.
The myth, which we've all seen a million times, is that every fight ended with a dead gladiator. Simple as that. But the reality was driven by something much more practical, simple economics. You see, gladiators were incredibly valuable investments.
Exactly. I mean, think about it from the perspective of the guy who owned the training school. Why on earth would you spend a fortune to house, feed, and train a top-tier fighter only to have him killed in his very first match? It's not good business.
But, and this is important, this doesn't mean death wasn't a very real, very terrifying possibility. When a gladiator was defeated, they faced this incredibly dramatic moment where their life literally hung in the balance.
So, when a fighter was beaten, their fate often fell to the event organizer, who was, of course, listening to the roar of the crowd. If you put up a brave fight, even if you lost, you could earn the crowd's respect and be granted mercy. You'd live to fight another day.
And what happened if a gladiator didn't just survive, but actually thrived? Well, if they were skilled, if they were charismatic, if they kept winning, they could achieve a level of fame that we would totally recognize today. They were the rock stars of their time.
And of all the names that ever echoed through those arenas, one rose above them all. A name that would become a legend and shake the Roman Republic to its very foundations. Spartacus.
His story is just incredible. He was the perfect example of a highly trained, valuable fighter. But he used those skills not for the arena's entertainment, but to lead a rebellion. He escaped his ludus and kicked off one of the biggest slave uprisings in all of history, becoming a real threat to Rome itself.
So how did this whole epic tradition come to an end? Well, like all things, even the mighty games of Rome eventually just faded away.
It didn't happen overnight, but over hundreds of years as the Roman Empire itself transformed, with the rise of new ideas and religions like Christianity, the entire culture shifted, and the spectacle of the gladiator games just gradually faded into the past.
But the story remains one of the most dramatic chapters in Rome's history. And it leaves us with this final question, doesn't it? Centuries later, in a world that's so different, why are we still so fascinated by this raw spectacle of life and death and the incredible power of a crowd?